So I've put a lot of thought into this one. Should I send back my Galaxy Z Fold 3, go back to simpler times, or maybe even jump ship entirely and go with the latest iPhone? And that's why I need your help. It's a real dilemma. I'm finding it hard to decide. So at the end of this video, once you've reviewed all of the facts, let me know what you think I should do. And if you've been contemplating whether to get one of these for yourself, well, this video is going to be really useful for you. So I've basically weighed up the pros and cons that I've noticed over time using the Fold 3. And what I'm going to do is to kind of quantify how good and how bad these things are. I'm giving them a score out of 5. So 5 being the worst or the best, depending if it's a good or bad feature I'm talking about. And at the end, we'll be able to weigh up whether the good outweighs the bad or vice versa. And if the bad does outweigh the good, then really the practical thing to do would be to send it back. But honestly, I don't know. I need your help. So anyway, you ready? Let's go. So the first good point about the Galaxy Z Fold 3 is the incredible unfolded display. I believe the Z Fold 3 has the best quality, largest display that we've ever seen on a smartphone. And as well as that, you're able to fit it in your jeans pocket. And this isn't me just trying to hype up the screen. It really is that good. The colors, the contrast, the pixels, the brightness, everything is spot on. And because of that, I'm giving this screen a goodness rating of 4 out of 5. Okay, here's the first bad point. It's the unsightly crease. Now, the reality is, at nighttime, in the evenings, when there's lower light and you're looking straight at the display, you're not going to notice it that much. But in the daytime, when the sun is shining, you are going to notice it. And before I got this phone, one of my personal concerns about going with a folding device is how visible is that crease really going to be? And in my opinion, on the Z Fold 3, the screen is compromised by the crease. But you can learn to live with it. But what makes it worse for me is I actually got to test out the Huawei Mate X2, and that actually had a crease as well, but it wasn't quite as aggressive as this one. And because of that, I'm giving this crease a bad factor score of 4 out of 5. Okay, so here's a big win for this phone, another really good point, and it's the 120Hz refresh rate screens. We're talking about 120Hz on both displays. And if you didn't know, Samsung probably make the best displays in the smartphone industry right now, and they're so good at making their displays super smooth, silky smooth, and that is something special. And if you've never had a 120Hz phone before, trust me, this is a game changer. And because of that, I'm giving this 4 out of 5. So on the Z Fold 3, you have 2 beautiful screens that support 120Hz, and that is a lot of responsibility for the CPU and the GPU. And with great responsibilities comes great power drain. So from my experience using the Z Fold 3, when it comes to battery, I get to around 9 PM most days with about 10% battery left, which isn't great. And what makes it worse is the Galaxy S21 Ultra has a bigger battery, and that was the last phone I had from Samsung before this one. So it's actually a back step. And because of this, I'm gonna have to give the battery drainage situation a badness score of 4 out of 5. But here is a massive upside to that, and it's the video playback experience. Technically, you've got 3 different ways to watch movies and video content on a good size screen. So you've got the flex view, so you can actually have half the screen and then the other half of the screen doing something else. You can actually use flex view the other way around as well. So just have the cover screen as your display, so you wouldn't need a phone case with a kickstand in those kind of scenarios. And then of course you've got that unfolded IMAX experience, which is really unmatched other than the Mate X2. It's the only other phone I can think of. And this would have got a better score if it wasn't for the crease and my anxiety around the battery situation on this phone. I'm giving the video playback features a 4 out of 5. It seems like everything's 4 out of 5 up until now, but trust me, some of it won't be. Okay, here's a bad point, and this is actually a big problem for me. So I've been raving about how good the screens are, and yes, the cover screen is bigger than before and more usable than ever, but there's a major problem here. And it's important to say that this may not affect all of you. This might just be something that's unique to me, but it is a problem, and I'm finding it to be increasingly more annoying as the days go by. I just find the cover screen too narrow. And I'm used to narrow phones. I've been using the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II for the best part of the year, and that's got a pretty slim form factor, but I find this one just a little bit too slim. I'm constantly finding myself hitting the wrong keys when I'm typing one-handed, and typing two-handed on the cover screen is incredibly awkward, and before you say, why would you type two-handed on the cover screen when you could just unfold it and type two-handed on the big screen? Well, that takes me back to my battery life anxiety. You really have to be mindful of your battery usage on this phone. And because of that, I'm giving the cover screen usage a big bad 4.5 out of 5. So here's another really strong point for the Galaxy Z Fold 3, and it's the cameras. They are top tier cameras if you ask me. Samsung have always been in the top echelon of smartphone cameras, and this one has 5 on it. And all of these except for one are very impressive. And when you combine these really powerful cameras with the fact that you can use your cover screen for selfies or even as a viewfinder for the person you're taking a picture of, and you've got that flex view set up as well if you want to use that, I've got to give the camera goodness a 3.5 out of 5, and I'll explain why it's not higher in the next bad point. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, the last phone I tested from Samsung was the S21 Ultra, and that phone has better cameras than this one. But you won't have that cover view selfie setup and the flex view, but on paper and in reality, the cameras are worse. So if like me, you're coming over from the S21 Ultra, then you might be slightly disappointed with the cameras on here. And because of the fact that it feels like Samsung are just holding out on the good stuff, you got to give this a bad factor of 4 out of 5. So the Note series is no longer with us, and I still remember the day they prima-nocted my Galaxy Note 7.
I will bless this marriage by taking the bride into my bed on the first night of her union. Oh my God, you will not!
But here's the good news and a good feature on the Z Fold 3. It does have S Pen support, which means if you're doing loads of productivity based stuff on your phone, this phone is a total beast, especially if you're working with spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But if you're like me, you're really going to enjoy the coloring book. So I'm giving this 3 out of 5 on the goodness scale. And the reason it's not higher is because you have to buy it separately. And do you know what I think? I think bring back the Note. Okay, so here's a bad point, and it's something that really bothered me a lot. The S Pen is great, but you know what's not great? The case. It's like turning your beautiful folding 2021 smartphone into a Filofax from the 1980s. And if you do decide you want to get this case, you better invest in some jeans with massive pockets or a suitcase or something, and forget about using this with a car phone holder. You're just not going to be able to do it with the case on. And honestly, the Stylus case is just so bad, so badly designed. I've got to give it another big bad 4.5 out of 5. Okay, here's good point number 6. This kind of goes back to the productivity aspect of things. The flex view for video conferencing is very useful. The Z Fold 3 is probably the best equipped smartphone for video conferencing right now because of that flex view setup. So if you're a workhorse and you're always on conference calls, you're gonna love this feature. Based off of the fact that there are very few phones out there that can do the same thing, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 on the goodness scale. And here's bad point number 6. And it really is that quite bad under display camera. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded if they had a camera cutout and a better camera. That wouldn't have bothered me too much. But the fact that it's pretty much unusable for photographs. But it is okay for video conference calls. You don't really need high quality video conferencing quality. I'm gonna give this one a bad score of 2.5. So that's middle of the road. It's good for video conferencing, it's bad for photos. So there we go. Those are the bad features versus the good features that I've found. Here are the total scores. 22.5 for good features and 23.5 for bad. And when I look at these, I'm still conflicted. The bad is outweighing the good. So the reality is, for me personally, I should probably send it back. And the worst thing is I just ordered a later case for it as well. So not sure what I'm gonna do with that when that arrives if I send it back. And I'm really not going out of my way to try and put anyone off from buying this phone. It really is fantastic. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. Should I send it back or not? So I appreciate you guys watching this far into the video. Do let me know what you think I should do in the comments below. I will read your comments and I will reply. And if you just subscribed, you're now one of the finest subscribers known to man. And I will see you in the next one. So don't be late.